if we can figure out, if I can figure out how to short circuit knowledge for you that's going to make your life better, connections that are going to make your life better, then I'm all about it. I want to do it. And if you put that out in the world, it comes back to you in spades.
This is Outside Sales Talk, the best podcast for outside salespeople. I'm your host, Steve Benson, and we're here to chat with the world's top sales experts so that you can get their best sales tactics to level up your game. Welcome back to Outside Sales Talk. I've got Drew Sechrist with me, and he's going to teach us about networking to make your next big deal. Drew, welcome to the show.
Steve, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And just by way of introduction, Drew is the co-founder and CEO of Connect the Dots. It's a company that helps map professional relationships in order to find the strongest connections possible. He previously played an important role in the rise of Salesforce, helping them grow from $0 to over $1 billion in revenue, and he was employee number 36. During that time, he was both the number one sales manager globally and the number one account executive globally. So quite a track record.
It was a fun ride. Super lucky to be given the opportunity.
Absolutely, such a great company. So let's talk about networking. At times, networking can be so awkward or and intimidating and daunting for people. Tell us a bit about how you started out at Salesforce and what gave you the courage to reach out to them and network your way in there.
So the irony of my story with Salesforce is that it all started with a cold email, and a cold email I sent to Mark Benioff back in 1999. And the reason that's ironic is because my new company, Connect the Dots, is all about how making it so that you don't have to send cold emails anymore. Making it so that you can see who in your network knows the people you're trying to get to, so you can actually go in warm. You don't have to do this. But back in 1999, no such technology existed, and so I was I kind of rewind just a little bit so you understand kind of the backstory. I grew up in the East Coast, went to school in North Carolina. After school, ended up working for a couple of companies in North Carolina, locally there, and one was a company that was a VAR, value-added reseller of Salesforce automation products and business intelligence products. There are things like Sales Logic's Goldmine, uh, Seagate Crystal Info. These are all old products that have either been consumed by some larger organization or just kind of gone away at this point. But back then, companies like ours on the East Coast would uh, resell these products and then go implement them for companies. So, like in North Carolina, we had Volvo Trucking as one of our big customers that we would sell them a Sales Logic's implementation with Seagate Crystal Info as their business intelligence tool on top of it, and we'd integrate the whole thing and then roll it out to their team. So that was our business. That was the business I was in, and I had this idea that we should probably move towards the internet, which is now sounds like a no duh kind of idea, but back in 1999, all these things we didn't really use the internet that terribly much, and I read an article in the Wall Street Journal about this guy named Mark Benioff leaving Oracle, where he had been an executive, and he had taken $2 million in investment from Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, to start this thing called Salesforce.com, and he was going to rewrite Salesforce automation software from the ground up to be delivered as a web application, literally inside of a web browser. There it is, your entire application in the web browser. And my head almost exploded. I was like, that's the future. That's exactly what should happen. So I cold emailed him in 1999 and said, hi, Mark. My name's Drew. I work for this company here on the East Coast. We resell products like yours, all client server products, not web native products like the one that you're building. When it's ready to go to market, I'd be interested in talking to you about reselling it. And Mark Benioff, to his credit, he's super fast on email. I don't know if he is still this incredibly fast, but back then it was incredibly fast. He wrote back to me almost immediately and said, sorry, we're not going to have a reseller network. We're going to just have a direct sales team. And I said, well, I wrote back to him and I said, let's talk about some other way that I could get involved. And he said, fly out to San Francisco and let's talk. And so I did. I flew out to San Francisco and I met with Mark when the company was probably about a dozen people, and in a little office in San Francisco, down on like Mission Street, I think, or yeah, right around there. And and he said, I told him my story about why I was interested in reselling his product, because I said, look, I'm selling all these other things that are going to be your competitors once you come to market. I'm selling these products and I see all the problems with them. And there's a fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is that they're client server software. They need to be installed on everybody's computer and then networked together back to some computer that has the server on it. And there would be synchronization servers in the middle. All this stuff is just a really messy architecture, and things broke all the time. And I said, this is, you're going to solve this. I see it. You're going to solve this by just having a web browser be the interface for your customers, and then you handle all the complexity behind that. And it makes perfect sense to me. And I guess I said that pretty compellingly, because he said, "Great, I want you to come sell for us." And so he offered me a job on the spot, and I got the offer, and it was a quadrupling of my what I was making back in North Carolina. And then I was moving. It was an offer to move to San Francisco, which is that's the big leagues when it comes to technology. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. I'd be an idiot to pass this thing up. So that was the origin story. And how did I muster up the courage to network my way in? It was my At that point, it was like my job to find products to resell and resell the products. Uh, and me personally, I was just it was clear to me that there was a huge technology change that was going to happen, and I wanted to figure out which was the right horse to bet on in that technology change. And I saw Salesforce, and I thought, this is it. So I don't know. That's the story. I don't know how much courage it took. It just seemed like a no-brainer to me to like lob a cold email into Mark Benioff. What's the downside? What's he going to do? Not reply to me? It's not
Well,
going to hurt my feelings
and
too bad.
that's exactly the right attitude to have, I think. And I think a lot of people that are considered naturals in sales because they just have the right attitudes. But I think anyone can learn these attitudes effectively. If they wrap their heads around it and practice a bit. What are the foundational skills that you think that you have, or that everyone needs to be successful in success, to be a great networker?
Well, there's one of our customers, and the CEO of a great company here in Silicon Valley, a guy named Nick Mehta, who's CEO of Gainsight, which is a SaaS company that many other SaaS companies use their product. He was actually on another podcast I was listening to a little while ago, where somebody asked him, when's the best time to network, and he said, well, I'll tell you when the worst time to network is, and that's when you need a job. That's the worst time. You should probably do it anyway, I guess, but it's the worst time. And he said the best time to network is always. Should always be doing it. And I thought that was really great advice, actually. Because the way networking, if you're thinking about networking as like this transactional thing where you go to a Rotary Club meeting and you're giving business cards to each other, and very intentionally like that. It can, like, those networking events, I think, are uh, things that a lot of people dread. Like, well, I don't really want to go do that. It doesn't feel natural. It feels kind of transactional. Just that doesn't necessarily float everybody's boat. Some people are really like that. Nothing against those events, by the way. I think this should exist and people should go do those things. But um, the I what I took from Nick Mehta's guidance was, when you're living your life, you're networking. We're social animals. We're constantly, like, you look at what we do as people, we're constantly interacting with each other. And I think if you're if you're kind of, and you should naturally be gregarious. Should be interested in other people. You should get over your fear of talking to people, if you have one. If you want to be successful in networking, just like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Probably nothing too terribly bad. Um, and then the other thing is just out of a lot of curiosity in other people. Really wanting to understand what makes them tick, what they're trying to accomplish in their lives. And you might not be able to help them right now, but you can put it in the back of your mind, and then it goes into this, it goes into your personal, your database of people that you could potentially, tap into, or you might be able to help in the future. And if you take a proactive approach to helping people, uh, knowing a lot of people, and then you take a proactive approach to helping them when you can, then you're doing a great job. I think you're just like you're living a great life as a human being in that situation, and you're a great networker. But you didn't really have to work too hard at it. You're just like, kind of being a good person and living your life. And I read at some point, I don't know, in the last 20 years, whenever it came out, whenever it was popular, The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if you've ever read that. Um,
Way back in
you,
the
you
day.
check, yeah, it's
I
been a while. Yeah,
I think that was actually required reading in business school. I think that's how.
I mean, it should be like that's it should be because business school is all about that. You're trying to build these bonds with people who are going to go out and do really interesting things in the world, and then be able to tap in. You want to be able to tap into that network going forward. That's one of the biggest things you get out of going to business school. And I remember reading that, and I read the chapter on, um, uh, I think they call them connectors. Does that remind? Does that sound right to
Yeah.
you? Connectors, I
Yeah,
think.
the people who are go out of their way to connect other people with other people.
Yeah, I read it and I
Uh,
was like, that's me to a T. I totally do that. If you told me like that you want to, if we just today on the call, we're talking about yoga, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Bali. I think I'm going to go to Bali in the next couple of months and do a yoga teacher training, and because I've always wanted to do that. Immediately, my brain would be like, wait, I just talked to somebody who just did that, and was just at a yoga teacher training in Bali, and they raved about it. And so I should probably tell Steve about that and probably connect them so that they can talk, so that before Steve books anything, that he gets that local input from somebody who's got it. And I don't do that for a commission. I'm not doing that because I think Steve's going to give me a tip, and here, Drew, here's $50 for the great insight. I just do it because I hope everybody does that, because then it's a better world. If we can figure out, if I can figure out how to short circuit knowledge for you that's going to make your life better, and connections that are going to make your life better, then I'm all about it. I want to do it. And if you put that out in the world, it comes back to you in spades. That's been my experience. So yeah, that's I don't know. It's kind of a meandering way to talk about networking, but maybe there are a few nuggets in there.
no, absolutely. I think there's a lot to learn from that. I mean, you create value for others, and that builds relationships. And I think that's one of the big challenges for people with networking in general is at one end you've got kind of the transactional, like, well, we've exchanged business cards. Now we could mail each other and pitch each other after we did a networking event together. At the other end, it's real long-term relationships where everybody is better off from having the relationship. And I think, you know, one way to, after you establish an initial connection as a salesperson, you can go about maintaining strong relationships and deepening relationships is time and being useful. And I think that's kind of your strategy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in sales and also just in life, like help where you can.
Yeah. And yeah, and so often the lessons from sales are applied to all of life, right? Because that's, sales is a part of life. It's being the friction, it's being the lubricant between two organizations that are doing business, or two groups of people who are doing business, or two groups of or just, an individual consumer and someone who needs help buying something. But
Well, yeah, and if I heard this plenty, and I actually think it's really true. Kind of, you're always selling all the time, like everybody is. You're always selling your ideas, or you're selling yourself personally, or you might actually be selling a product or a service. You might actually be literally doing that. But whatever you're doing, you are you know enrolling others in the way that you see the world, and where the world ought to go, and it's sales. So
yeah,
we're all doing
when
it.
I and I think, the if you're always just thinking about sales and you're only helping people who you think a sale could come from, I think you're also missing the point of networking, because a lot of times it's just, paying forward favors that aren't you don't expect to come back to you, but they randomly come back a different way or from something else, you
Yeah.
know?
I think you got to think about it as like 0.1% of this is going to come back in some monetary way, to you. Like 99.9% of what you're doing is you're just being a useful member of society. And then, and that's your network. Your network's like 99.9% of it is like it's not about really they're not going to turn into money for you as customers, and that's just not everybody's going to be in the market for your product. But if you have a
Yeah,
great network, yeah, if you have a great network, then you're going to have all these people that you can use to tap to get to the people who do need it. And if you've been, useful, helpful to them, honorable, high integrity, fun to hang out with, you bring value wherever you can, then you're able to tap into that network, and all of you win.
right. That makes a ton of sense, and it's a great attitude. I've always kind of felt like as a proxy, like whatever value you create in the world, you get to keep about 10% or 10% comes back to you. Like in a lot of sales jobs, that's exactly the number, right? I mean, sometimes it's five
Yeah.
percent, sometimes it's 20%, depends on the industry, but in life in general, I think that's kind of the proxy. It's like if you created $1 billion in value, you probably have 100 million. If you created, you know, $1 million in value, you probably have 100,000, right? It's so
Yeah.
it's some ratio around there, and some places it's better, some places it's worse, but it's around there. But you mentioned tapping into your team, your network around you, um, to kind of almost boost your own networking numbers and boost your own impact. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, feels like it feels like maybe I should talk a little bit about what I've been focusing on company wise for the past. It's been about 4 years now.
Yeah, I'm kind
Um,
of putting the ball on the tee here.
yeah, I appreciate that. As CEO of a company who is here to definitely sell something, then it's nice to have it teed up so cleanly. So uh, I took that. I'll go back a little bit and tell a story about like what it is we're doing and how we got to this point. I took that job at Salesforce, and I stayed there for 10 years. I was at the company from pre-revenue to over $1 billion in revenue when I left a decade later, and I learned a lot. And one of the things that I learned, which is you could almost call it like a cheat code. One what is how do you do that? How do you grow a company from 0 to $1 billion in a decade?
It's
And
very different, very, very hard.
it's
Very
hard.
few,
It's not
very few people
common.
have done that. Yeah, very. That's
Let's
happened
yeah,
very few times.
let's put it that way. It's not common for sure. So you need some codes, to be able to make it work. And I think my favorite cheat code the whole time there, when I could figure it out, was figuring out a good relationship that exists that you can leverage to just jump straight to third base. Rather than do all the hard work to like get on the first base and the second base and maybe strike it out a bunch of times. And like if you can find the right relationship, you kind of wake up on third base. You're right there. You're there on third base. And the problem is finding those relationships. And if you're a smaller company and your network's not that big, those relationships can be harder to find. As companies get more networked and bigger, and you've got more senior executives in there, and there are more people that are kind of on your team, right? Because if you think about your team, if you're in a company that's if you're in a well-run Silicon Valley company, then your team certainly consists of every employee in the company. It's like everyone in the company wants this company to succeed. So like Badger Maps, you guys all like you're going to succeed or fail together, right? So everybody should be bringing everything they can to the game to make it to make your team win. And um, so your team consists of your employees, but it should also consist of your investors and your advisors, your customers who love you, because you should be doing a really good job. Number one thing you should do is be acquiring customers and making them successful. And when they're successful, they should be your friends at that point. They should be, thank you. We really appreciate you guys putting the effort in to make us successful. They should be part of your team. And then you've got family and friends, and you've got your extended network. Uh, that's your team. And your team can be pretty big. Even if you're a small company, your team can be pretty big if you add all those components into it. And the uh, the thing that I learned at Salesforce was, even when we were pretty small, we had a pretty big, we had a pretty impressive team. Like Mark Benioff in the early days, even when there were only like fewer than 50 of us in the company, Mark knew a lot of people that he could get to, and he was like, he knew Larry Ellison and he knew a bunch of other, founders and VCs and really, it's like, I don't know, I think he knew the King of Jordan at that point for some reason. Like he had a really good network and if we could figure out who he knew that was useful at the right moment, then Mark would absolutely, make the introduction or get a call put together so that we could, forward our agenda, which was selling Salesforce.com at that point. And so uh, that was the cheat code. We called it, by the way, we called it connect the dots. That meant figuring out who knows who, so you can leverage the relationship to get to power in the company that you're selling to. And that term, the term was coined by one of our legendary sales leaders, a guy by the name of Dave Rudnitsky, who was one of our sales leaders on the East Coast, and he trained the company on his success methodology. How do you be successful in sales? His team was wildly successful, and so he had this acronym. It was SUCCESS, and each letter stood for one thing that you were supposed to do to follow this formula. And one of the C's stood for connect the dots, and that was figure out who knows who in the account. Use that to get to power, because if you can do that, then you wake up on first base, or you wake up on third base. Yeah, and you're at power immediately. You could be talking to the CFO or the CRO or the CEO of the company, as opposed to struggling to get somebody, like a manager in the department that you sell to open your cold email and reply to it. So, but you had to figure out how to get there. Now, some of that was, going in cold, trying to send a cold email to the right person and do enough research that it would get their attention. But that hit rate was pretty low. But it happens sometimes. And the irony, the story, my origin story here was that, that's what I do with Mark Benioff, and that's how I ended up with the job at Salesforce. So it's not like it never happens. It does happen. Now, 1999 was a different era than today, 2023. That the volume of cold emails was a lot lower. Also, the sophistication of cold emails was a lot lower. Now, the arms race has gone up, and so now you've got these automated sequences and cadences of cold emails that go out. There's generative AI that's making them look pretty good. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of volume. So if you're a decision maker in 2023, you're getting hammered, just hammered with cold email and cold outreach. And so it's, the number one filter that you now in 2023 that you use to look at your inbox and say, am I even going to read this email or am I just going to delete it? The number one thing is, do I know who this came from? And if I don't, if I see like this is some name I don't know, then it's just another cold email. And then I have to hit delete. Sorry, because I just don't have enough. There aren't enough hours in the day for me to read and contemplate every cold email that I get. So the stakes have gone up so much in trying to do your pipeline generation, get into accounts, get to the people, the decision makers that you want to get to. You really like it's very hard if you don't have an existing relationship. The cool thing is you probably have a lot more relationship paths available to you than you realize. You just need to be able to shine a light on those relationship pathways. And so that's what we are actually dedicating our lives to at Connect the Dots. It is helping you build what we call your company's super graph. That is a graph of all the relationships of the people that we talked about. And, your coworkers, your investors, your advisors, your friends, your customers, you name it. Everybody who's on your extended team. Build a graph of all of the relationships and make that visible to you and the rest of your team in a way that's really, really actionable so that you can see who really knows who, so that you can ask the right person at the right time for the right introduction to the person, like maybe the CFO or the CRO or the CEO of the company that you're trying to get to. And you're asking the right person who actually knows that person really well to make the introduction, and they can do it. And so they do that, and then you end up the next thing you know, you end up in a meeting with the decision maker as opposed to trying to bang your head against the wall until it breaks to get into that account.
Makes a ton of sense. And frankly, I mean, that's what LinkedIn was doing for me in 2007, 2008, 2009.
Hmm.
Because it was people only had their actual friends on there. Right now, I have, I don't know, 25,000 friends on LinkedIn, but there's
Hmm.
I don't know them. I mean, they just, so
That's
you know,
it.
it's and my Facebook's much more accurate. And I only have 1,000 friends on there or something, and those are, tend to be. But I don't know all those either. I'm sure, but like,
Yeah.
but that's also not the social. That's not the my professional network either. So I guess yeah, I'm super curious, like how you're approaching this, and
Mhm.
what the backbone of your figuring out what are the close relationships, and what aren't, what that backbone is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you, as we were, getting to know each other for a few minutes before we started this podcast, you had observed, I think, really accurately that like back in the early 2000s, LinkedIn was actually, probably better than for showing you like who do I know that really and who do I know that knows this person really? Because back then it was uh, the, the the culture on LinkedIn at that point was really only connect with people that you know. And they were kind of reinforcing that. There was a lot of messaging in LinkedIn about it. That you should only you should have met with this person in real life if you're going to link in with them. And then over time, that just all kind of eroded, and uh, we
and
had this explosion of
and over time it did grow. Like, I mean, someone that I met with in person 15 years ago, I probably connected with, but now if you asked either one of us, we'd have no idea who the other person was.
yeah,
We're like, oh, did we
yeah,
talk about something? Oh, we were at a dinner. We were at John's birthday dinner 15 years ago. Oh, how do you know John again? Oh, like,
yeah, yeah.
it's hard, right? It's just we've all been walking around with our phones linking with people on everything, on all these platforms forever, and so it's all
But,
kind of meaningless
you
now.
know, Dunbar's number. Dunbar's
Yeah,
number.
where you can have like five close friends and 15 people you really know, and then 150 or 250 that you actually know even their name and who they are, and after that, it's just a sea of blankness.
Yes, yeah, that, and I remember actually going through breaking through that barrier at Salesforce because I was employee number 36 there. So at the beginning, we all knew each other really well. We're all in one room together, and then gradually we got up to over 100, then 150. I think that was where it starts to break, and at that point, I remember when that happened in the company's growth. I'm like, there are people now walking around in this office that I've seen now, and they appear to work here. Looks like they're colleagues of mine, and I will probably never know who they are. It just broke. Up until that point, we all knew each other. If anybody was in the office that somebody didn't recognize, they'd say like, "Hey, I'm Drew or I'm Sam or whatever," because we're at a size where you could keep it all in your head. And after that
Oh,
broke, then it was just
I can't even keep together everyone that's worked for me at this point. I mean, we've probably had, I don't know, 600 people or 700 people work at Badger over the years.
yeah,
I couldn't, I know a lot of them, and certainly if they were high up in the organization, I knew who they were. But
yeah,
there have been a lot of people. I know a lot of them, I suppose. I interviewed almost all of them, but it's definitely the names and faces are getting blurry at this point.
yeah.
For
I mean
someone who
that
worked here 7 years ago or something, it's like, or 12
yeah,
years ago, it's like,
totally happens, and those are like people that are you're working together, so it's like a very close relationship, even if it's a large organization. So yeah, that whole thing is a real thing on LinkedIn, where if you're a salesperson and you are using LinkedIn to try and figure out how to get to a person, then the pain of it. Always the dance always goes like this. It's like, hey Steve, I see that you are connected with Adam Johnson. Do you know him well enough to make an introduction for me? And then you're like Adam Johnson, and you go look up Adam Johnson. You're like, I don't know. And then you're like, sorry, Drew, I don't really know Adam. It looks like we're at LinkedIn, but I couldn't tell you how. And over time, like if you literally have 25,000 contacts on LinkedIn, that's going to happen high 90% percentages of the time. you're just not going to know who that person is. And it's frustrating for everybody, right? Because it takes time out of your day. I'm asking you for a favor and then you can't do it. And you'd probably like to be able to do me a favor, or you'd like me not to even ask, right? But either
Well,
way,
I
it's
think
like,
that's where it's landed on LinkedIn is people don't at we used to do that all the time. Like there was like there was a way to do it. There was like a button and you could be like you could ask your friend to introduce you to someone and they could like, agree or disagree or do it or not do it. But like there was a way to but now it's like you almost feel I would feel weird reaching out to someone unless I was a really close friend of theirs and being like, "Hey, do you know this person that you could introduce me to?" Because like everybody's, it's you can't tell if they know them or not from that. If
yeah,
it was on Facebook or something, then maybe. But this is harder.
maybe, but I think Facebook people have this. I mean, I had the same problem with Facebook, to be honest. It's the same thing. And I've kind of like stopped aggregating Facebook friends. It's just this kind of fallen out of fashion. Like I don't get that
Yeah,
many Facebook requests anymore, but I have a lot, and I don't know. I don't know the majority of people that I'm connected on Facebook with either. So I don't think it's a uniquely LinkedIn problem. But what it
yeah.
probably
Well,
what it
my
is like,
problem on Facebook is 1/25th my problem on LinkedIn. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you're like, you and I are certain types of people, right? We're CEOs of software companies, and LinkedIn's a more important social network for us than Facebook at this point in our lives, in all
yeah.
likelihood. And so we, probably put more time into that, and we're proactively like building our networks.
Wait, Drew,
But
are you implying that you don't like selfie on the gram all day? Because that I totally How
for some reason, I actually have a checklist of things that I need to check on a daily and weekly basis, or I will completely forget about them. And Instagram's one of them. I don't know. It's just me, but like literally, I have a checklist. Check your Instagram to see if there's any message from a friend there that you need to respond to. But yeah, I'm not doing a ton of selfies on Instagram. I think I've posted a total of like 15 photos to Instagram in my entire life. That's it.
I've never
And
really
I,
used it
but
except for my marketing team used it for me for a little while, and that was pretty funny. But because it looked like I was doing a lot on the gram, but I actually I've really never used
yeah,
it.
you might actually turn me into a user now, because now I'm curious to see what your profile looks like from your marketing department. So
I hit
you're gonna get
a
a follow.
I hit a lot of those, and I've got my personal one and my business one now. So, but yeah,
Uh,
Steve Benson SF if you want to see, but and Steve Benson is it Steve Benson 5 if you want to see cute pictures of my baby. That's where I keep those.
Steve Benson SF, and then what? Steve Benson 5. Is that right?
I think that's what they are. Yeah, Steve Benson. It's definitely Steve Benson SF. I'm not totally sure about my personal one, but I think that's what it is.
I'll I'll maybe you'll convert me. Maybe I will become an Insta regular now that
I
I
mean, it's
have
it
your
is
phone.
she's a really cute baby. I mean, she really is.
uh, and I bet the setting is amazing in Granada, of her wandering around the plazas of Granada. Probably some really magnificent photo ops.
Yeah, since I just moved here for people that don't know me as well, but I just moved to Granada, Spain, where Badger has its largest office, and yeah, one of the reasons was it's such a great place to have a little kid. It's a small town in Spain, and they can just kind of run around the plazas, and it's a it's a very sociable place, which is great for kids. So we're having a lot of fun so far.
I think you've chosen very wisely. I think that's a amazing place to raise a little girl. Uh, so where were we, Steve? We were
We
talking about
were we were talking about the gram. We were talking about
oh, I know what it
I
was. I think
your company,
you're
really. Yeah, we got into
yeah.
social media off of understanding how your company works and what it does to allow you to leverage your team to to sell more and generate more warm introductions. Really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd probably to jump to the punchline here. Like, how do we help you, like, in this sea of relationships out there where you can't really tell who knows who, who really knows who? how do we help you solve that problem?
Yeah.
So our company, Connect the Dots, we let you create an account as an individual and keep it for life, kind of like you would do with a LinkedIn account. You know, you create a LinkedIn account and you keep it for life as you go through different jobs. You can also, as a company, you can create a Connect the Dots account for the entire company. And everybody in the company, all the employees in the company get a Connect the Dots account as part of that. And they can merge their two accounts. As an individual, you can connect your personal account with your work account and have a unified view of your entire network. And the really different thing that we do is we let you ingest all of your LinkedIn contacts. So I don't have 25,000 like you, but I've got a lot. I've got 5,200, I think, something like that. We have a Chrome extension that lets you synchronize those into your Connect the Dots account. And then what gets really interesting is you can connect your work email account and your personal email account, and then the other email accounts you have. You might have alternate ones. And Connect the Dots has built the technology that analyzes the header data on every email that you've ever sent or received in your life. That's the from, the to, and the CC field, and the date field. And from looking at those email addresses and a bunch of other data that we have scoured the web and ingested, we are able to give you a near perfect and evergreen list of all the people you've ever communicated with in your life and score those relationships with a concept of relationship strength. So just to give you some rough ideas on numbers here, for me, like I'm 49 years old. I have a Gmail account that I've had for 20 years that I've connected. I've got a work account that I've been using here at Connect the Dots for 4.5 years or something like that. And I have a couple other email accounts that I've connected, and my LinkedIn account that I've synchronized in. Across that entire set of um, there's, there's all those data sources. I have about 28, almost 29,000 contacts, people that I've ever communicated with, and all 29,000 of them, I've got their. If it's available, not everybody like has everything available, but if it's available, I've got their name, their title, and their company where they work now. I've got their work history where they used to work. I've got any email addresses that I have ever communicated with them on, all neatly organized together in one contact record, one person record. So, like, I might have had a friend who worked at Merrill Lynch for a while, and then Morgan Stanley, and then Oracle, and then Amazon. And let's say that it was like Sally Johnson was her name. I'd have one record for Sally Johnson with all of my email communication history with her across all of those different companies and all of her different email accounts. And each of those 20, in my situation, 28, 29,000 contacts that I have, my relationship is scored for them with three dots indicating how well I know that person. From weak, one dot's weak, two dots is familiar, and then three dots is a strong relationship. And it's just based on how much we've communicated over time and how recently we've communicated. So it's a relatively straightforward algorithm. But what it does is, it takes those 29,000 contacts, which is a gargantuan amount, and shows me here are the ones that I've got a weaker relationship with. Here are the ones I got a familiar relationship with. Here are the ones that I know the best. So immediately I can see, if I were going to build a list of the people I know best, that's a piece of cake for me. It's already done automatically. And so that organizes my universe, which is amazing. It's an amazing thing to be able to, like, if I want to have a holiday card list, I can go straight to Connect the Dots and just be like, oh, well, who should be on this? I can write down the list and see who should be on that list. That's great. I can also,
Just
sort it by.
don't forget about grandma. You don't email with grandma, but you still she's got to get the Christmas card.
Well, sadly, I don't have a living grandmother anymore, but both my grandmothers I did email with, which I'm not sure that everybody emails with their grandmother, but email is an old technology, so there's a pretty good chance that grandma has been emailing. May not be the preferred choice of communication with grandma these days, but in all likelihood, you have emailed with your grandmother at some point.
I don't think I
Because that
ever
was the way
emailed
that.
with her. I did get her an email, grandma benson at gmail.com, if I recall, but I'm not sure she ever used it. I did show her Facebook, and she was very impressed with this. That was probably 10 years ago.
Ah, yeah.
So back when she was still with us, she was very interested in Facebook. She was like, she loved pictures. So
Yeah, picture. I mean, it turns out it's not just for grandmas. Like lots of people like pictures, and worked out well for Facebook, and then later for Instagram. Um,
right.
so So the first step is getting your own house in order, and we do that automatically for you. Get your house in order, and we show you like all of these contacts that you know, neatly organized. You can search by name, by title, by company, by geography, where they're located. You can build these lists. It's really amazing. It's like such a revelation when you see it. All your contacts neatly organized like that forever automatically. But where it really becomes crazy powerful, if you're in a selling organization, is now you turn it on for your team, and everybody's got this. And you invite your external, stakeholders like your customers and your friends and your investors, your advisors. You invite all those folks to join, and now you've got a super graph, and you're sharing visibility to each other's networks, and this grows exponentially. So now instead of seeing what 29,000 people that I can get to directly, now I can see like 1.5 million people that I can get to with the strong relationship paths. Like, how do I can see that, I know one of my colleagues well. My colleague knows somebody who is a CMO at a different company well, and that CMO at that company knows the CMO at a third company that we're selling to, and they've got a strong relationship. And I can see all the strong paths the whole way there. And so that's a very leverageable relationship path. And then we make it super easy for you to then click a button and ask your colleague to ask her friend, who's the CMO at the other company, for an introduction to the CMO at the target company. We make it all really, really simple. And it's not wasting anybody's time because you can actually see, oh, all these people know each other well. So it's not a shot in the dark. It's a sniper shot. Like this is gonna work. I'm gonna ask this person, and they're actually gonna make this request for me. And so there you
Yeah,
go. That's your
I
that,
mean, I totally get it. I mean, I did very similar things with LinkedIn back when everybody only had 300 friends
yeah.
who
That
were
was the
their
difference.
actual friends. I mean,
That was the
I,
difference. Yep.
when I started Badger, that was one of the first things I did was reach out to, my classmates from business school, my friends, like when I would see that they were connected to someone who was kind of in the right area at
Mhm.
one of the like in the industries and companies that we were targeting. And it was very much a by hand process, but you couldn't do it today. I mean, I just checked us on
Yep.
LinkedIn. You and I share 72 connections, and a few of them are close connections of mine. But good luck guessing the two, right?
Mhm. Well, I can guess. I looked actually and connect the dots, and I saw that Lars Lecky is in there, and I'm guessing you guys are relatively close. I think you both went to GSB together.
That is one of the two.
Yeah, there you go.
I was
So,
just at his house a couple months ago.
yeah, he's got a cool house in San Francisco.
He does.
Yeah,
Very cool, in fact.
yeah.
The
Uh,
warming chairs on his roof deck, fun.
so Lars is actually one of our investors. I actually I've never been in his house. I have gone by his house with him several times en route to other places. But it's cool. You can tell it's very cool from the outside. So I'm gonna next time I'm back in San Francisco, which is in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna actually ask him, as one of his investments, to invite me up to his warming chair on the roof.
I mean, it's always a good time to have a warming chair on your roof in San Francisco, in my experience.
Yes.
There's no season in which you don't want a heated. It's like they're like heated bench things. It's really
Yep.
I had never seen anything like it.
It's only part of the reason that I've moved from San Francisco to Miami Beach in the past couple of years. Only part of the reason.
It's a good reason.
Yeah.
So I guess your product worked. I mean, that is
There you
not.
go.
I'm not shilling for you. That was a live demo
Worked.
right
How about
there.
that? How about that? Yes. No, it truly is a revelation. When you see it, you'll just all these things light up, and you're like, "Wow, I didn't know that person knew that person, and that's incredible." And so it just makes your life a lot easier, and just it's also kind of like it's really really fun to be able to connect the dots
Yeah.
because it
Oh,
is a cheat code.
very cool. Very, very cool. Well, I'll have to ask Lars about all this stuff next time I chat with him. Um, well, on networking here. So, what about how can people use networking in 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 the industries they're selling into to understand better market trends and better connect with their prospects and understand them? Do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah. Well, here's where I will actually I'll give a shout out to LinkedIn because I think LinkedIn is pretty amazing for like if you're in an industry and you want to see what's going on, understand, tap into it. I think LinkedIn's incredible. Follow the right people, follow the right companies. You're going to get bunch of content pushed to you that's going to be super helpful. You will see people that are out there um, as thought leaders in the industry that you can tap into. You can build relationships with them. I you know there's this one specific thing that we are focused on doing really well. It's just like who knows who. But I gotta give a tip of the hat to LinkedIn for like building industry knowledge and like generally increasing the size of your network out there. I think they're really incredible for that. I would also say, earlier when I was talking about the Rotary Club meeting, as an example of networking that uh, people are not always they don't love. A lot of people don't love the concept of that type of event. There are, I think live in-person events are great for meeting people and building relationships. In our industry, do you go to SaaStr? Are
No,
you ever going to SaaStr conference?
I've been a bunch of times, yeah, early on. I haven't been recently, just because I've been living in different places,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I've been a bunch of times. Great,
So
great,
actually,
great conference.
yeah, it is a great conference. If you're in the SaaS business like we are, I think it's very useful to go. And I was just there was one in London, maybe a month ago. I was at that one, and actually last year the European one was in Barcelona, so it would have been pretty convenient for you, but it was in London this year. But I think those types of events are good too. Like meeting people in person should not be a thing of the past. I think that. We dealt with COVID. We had to figure out how to survive during that period of time. Everybody ended up working on Zoom, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. And there's a lot of great stuff that's come from that. I think we can all agree that there's some things that are just amazing, like the fact that you can live in Granada right now and go back to the States when you need to, and you can run your company like that. It's pretty awesome. And I'm in a similar situation. I'm in Belgrade, Serbia right now, and as long as I've got my Zoom and internet connection, there's a lot that I can do. But if you really want to build relationships, there is there's something magical about being together in person. And so I think just meeting the people that you're selling to and building relationships with them, getting lunches, dinners. I'm not a golfer, but I know the magic of golf. Golfing with your customers. I end up I'm more of a cyclist, and so I'll go on bike rides with the people that I'm kind of close with. That personally and in the business world, I have a lot of some of my best meetings will be on bike rides that are like 6 hour bike rides in Northern California, and you cover a lot of ground with somebody when you're 6 hours on a bike. So I think I love the magic of human presence. I think pick the right trade shows, the right events that draw people in your industry. Go to those things. There's some things that are like very social events, but are also great networking too. And I've been a fan of some events like this. There's an event that I just went to for the first time uh, this past this past New Year's called Renaissance Weekend. It's not a Renaissance fair. There aren't like people jousting and gestures and stuff like that. This is the Renaissance Weekends. It's more like a it, it was in Charleston, South Carolina. It is like an ideas festival, really interesting people from all over the country and all over the world. Everybody has to participate. So you are pulled into topic sessions where you have to present, and you just meet such amazing people and interesting people, and you build friendships really fast because you're doing this over the course of 3 days during New Year's. Like that type of thing is incredible. What a great networking event that was. And so those types of things I think are great. And if you're in sales and you want to be a connector and you want your network to be part of the value that you bring to the world, then I think you got to seek those things out where you are intellectually stimulated by the topics and the people that are there, and you get a chance to meet a bunch of people and kind of like speed date a lot of relationships, and then figure out which ones that you really clicked with and you want to nurture going forward, and then nurture them. And then getting older doesn't feel so bad because as you get older, you're like, hey, at least the upside of getting older is I've got all these wonderful relationships that I've nurtured over time, and they've grown and become wonderful things that have brought me and brought them a lot of joy. So that's not that. This is, by the way, I'm turning 50 this in like a month and a half, and so basically this is my personal self help consolation. Positive self talk. As I'm turning 50, I want to feel good about it.
Hey, I think a lot of people would agree with you, right? I mean, there's been a ton of research that I've read that has indicated that the most important thing that drives happiness and satisfaction in life is the close relationships you have, your family, your close friends, your network. Um, so networking, it's not just for sales, it's for life's happiness, right?
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, why are we selling stuff? Want to be happy
Yeah,
ultimately.
absolutely.
We want to do things that are going to make a great life for us and great life for the people around us, and we have a vision for. I mean, I can imagine if I were in the traveling salesperson, role, the one of the biggest pains that I would have to deal with on a daily basis is like, what do I do today? Where do I best focus my energy? Like, how do I route myself? That's what you guys do. You solve that problem. It's like the number one problem that if I'm a traveling salesperson, that's my number one problem. And yeah, I mean, like you would help me have a much better life if you could solve that problem. I'm not doing that now. I kind of did that in the very, very early days. When we had customers in the southeast right before I went to work for Salesforce. Kind of had that traveling salesperson problem, so I got a little taste of it. And
Yeah, depending on the industry, it can be pretty intense. It can be for some people it's 15 minutes a day they can figure it out. For other people it's 2 hours a day. It just depends on the complexity of the territory, how much decision making goes into the optimization of where you should spend your time, who you should spend it with, what the constraints look like. Like, well, can I drop in anywhere where whenever I want, or can I only see this customer on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon, and all. You kind of have to juggle a lot of data points to do it well, if depending on the complexity. So we're certainly not changing the world or anything, but we save a lot of
yeah,
people that sell stuff, 30 minutes a day on average. So
I mean,
it
you're
adds up.
changing the world for those people. You are.
Well, I hope so. That is the goal. Change the world, just like they say on TV. Well, the next section is sales in 60 seconds. Quick questions, quick answers. First question: what do you think the biggest mistake that salespeople make while networking?
Uh, Probably being transactional, just playing the short game instead of the long game. I'd say networking is, like I said, 99.9%. It's long game. Just play a long game, and then you'll know when there's like those 0.1% opportunities pop up, and it's like, oh, this is a really great. there's a transaction that should happen here. Great, but I would say, yeah, play the long game. Take an interest in people, see how be proactive in helping them, and then uh, let the universe provide, and it will.
What do you think the pros and cons are to face-to-face networking versus online networking?
Um, Disease transmission. Um, I wouldn't have really thought about that too much until COVID, but um, online networking. I still kind of don't fully know what it is. I think you and I are online networking right now while we're doing this podcast. Like I've gotten to know you a lot better than I knew you at the beginning of this podcast. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's good. Like this is pretty good. And um, yeah, I feel comfortable enough now that I'd put us at a familiar level, two dots in the connect the dots world. And so that's like that's nice because now I feel like if I were in Granada, if I had a reason to be down there, I would definitely look you up. And if you happen to be passing through Belgrade, I'd hope you'd look me up too.
Yeah,
Um, so I don't, I don't know exactly what online networking is. I don't. I mean, there are events that happen online. I know that there are happy hours that happen online sometimes, that kind of stuff. I still think I'm old fashioned this way. I think the best stuff is in person. You get to know
yeah,
people better, and it feels real. It feels real. And it's also like people there's also just a tedium around being on Zoom. Like, I'm enjoying this conversation with you, but you and I have both been on Zoom a bunch probably today, and all week are going to be on Zoom a lot. It's a different thing if you and I were, sitting down with a nice glass of Spanish wine and having some tapas, and we could probably do that for hours and not really look at the clock. And so it's different. It's just a different quality of interaction that you have.
yeah, yeah. And obviously, like everyone, basically everyone that listens to this podcast is in field or outside sales, and so I'd say in general, you're probably speaking to the
The
choir on this,
converted.
but
Yeah.
they're already converted. But the but I don't even know why that is. I mean, I why you don't connect with people. I mean, like I don't feel like people really connect with people on social media. I don't feel like they really connect to people. I guess these things can maintain relationships that already exist, but I think it's hard to build a new meaningful relationship online. I know it happens, but maybe it's just hard for me. Maybe if you're maybe if you're 16 right now, you're better at it. But um, there's too much gray in my beard for me to really like
Hmm.
build a relationship with someone that I've just met on the internet, I guess. May- Maybe, I guess I think of it as a way. I think it can form a community, but that community need or introduce people, but that needs to be taken into reality, I guess. Which is
Yeah,
interesting
it seems
because
like
a lot of the tech companies are trying to take us away from reality. They're like, hey, put on these goggles and pretend. Let's play pretend.
yeah. Um, I mean, I'm definitely not a luddite in any of this stuff. Like, I'm happy that we're being taken in that direction. I want us to have all these options. I think VR and AR actually look pretty incredible, and I'm excited about them. But I we haven't gotten to the point yet where real in-person human interaction is not important. I think it's still super, super, super important.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll tell you a thing, like, I've just noticed as we as a company, these are people that we even know really, really well. We as a company, we're spread across 9 time zones from Belgrade, Serbia, all the way up to San Francisco. And we I noticed that there is there's I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. There's like a degradation of seeing the other person as a human over time. There's like a half life where if you haven't seen that person for a while and in person, like if we haven't all gotten together in San Francisco or Belgrade or some other place, then over time that person loses some of their humanity, and you're like, you don't see them quite as a human. You see them more increasingly as an API, where it's like I give you input and you give me output. and
Yeah.
uh
I need this
and
thing from you and you do the thing. Yeah.
yeah, and just over time just it devolves and devolves and devolves and devolves and devolves a little bit. And then when you see that person again, it's like, it's just such a breath of fresh air that you're together in person and you're able to reestablish the human relationship between the two of you. And you see this person as like this full three-dimensional, complicated, interesting, human being that has all these other facets to them, not just the input and output of their API.
Yeah.
And that's with people that I know really, 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 really well. I'm telling you, like, my personal experience on this. And so if you're trying to like build new relationships with people you don't even know at all, and you haven't, like, you're not nurturing those relationships in person at all, there are going to be some limits to what you can accomplish until
Yeah.
until
It's
Apple's
hard.
until Apple's Vision goggles have full olfactory sense integration and
Yeah. I even then, I'm it's just I don't think that people are gonna, like, sit down with goggles on across from an empty table and pretend to, like, have dinner with someone else. I don't know, maybe they will. We'll see. Hey, we
I
have
get.
these same. Yeah?
I was just gonna say, I guarantee you they will. Now, is it gonna
Yeah.
be sad? Is it gonna be sad and creepy? Maybe. But
Well, it's cool if it's with, like, someone you're close with, you do see, like, I'll use FaceTime with my baby and my mom, so, the baby can spend time with grandma, but I think that is really meaningful, like, the baby understands that grandma is up on the TV, right? And, the it's, so I think it can work with if the relationship is sufficiently close and that you'd actually do it. With an interesting thing about COVID was we would actually the first well, at least for the first, like, 4 months or so, we were actually doing networking and, like, interacting with a lot of people. Like, I got invited a ton of, like, Zooms where, like, 12 people would have a drink and after work and talk to each other and stuff over Zoom. But that really died, like, I don't know, 3, 4 months into it because people decided it sucked, I think. And so
yeah.
maybe I just decided it sucked. Maybe other people are still doing it. I don't know. I don't think so, though.
Uh,
I think it kinda died because it was like, yeah, it's not the same.
well, I think as soon as real life connection came back as an option, then people fled to that. They wanted to. We crave it. We're social animals. We are social animals,
Yeah.
and
Well I love what you're doing. I mean, it feels like and this isn't just for business, it's for everything. I mean, I've
yeah.
actually tried to use certain platforms to figure this sort of thing out before. Like, hey, I'm going to London. Who do I know that's
Mm.
in London right now? Things like that. But unless other people are constantly updating where they're at and stuff, it's hard. There's not a way to do it, right?
Yeah, we
But
got you covered. You're gonna love it. So I will send you an invite now, and you will be able to do that when you go to London. You'll be able to just type in London, click the enter button, see your entire network that you can tap into.
awesome. I'm going to London on Friday, so let's do this.
Coming your way right now.
Awesome. Well, cool. So I guess let me try to summarize what we've talked about today, just because a lot of people listen to this while they're driving in their cars, so they're not taking notes. So, uh, s- first of all, you should always be networking. It's not just something you do when you're looking for a job. You need to take interest in what you need to take interest in them and what they're doing and what's important to them, and just be curious to understand what makes them tick. And to be successful at networking, you need to take a proactive approach to helping people. You want to think about connecting people with other people that'll bring value not just to you, but create value for other people through the connections you make. Try to find great relationships with people that you can leverage, and it's these relationships with connectors and people that are really also into this, that a lot into knowing a lot of people and being connectors, that often those are the relationships that you'll really jump ahead with. But really, I mean, anyone you can create value for, and we talked about whether it was 1% or 10% of the value you create, you keep. But it's who knows, but it's some fraction. So just if you just be a good person and try to create as much value as you can, it tends to work out. Your team, the people that are introducing you to people and you're introducing people to them, can be big, even if your company is small, right? Because it could be not just coworkers, but investors, family, friends, and really your whole extended network. And you can use your team to successfully meet people that end up becoming deals for your job. You want to figure out who knows who and use that information to get to power, start the relationship on third base with the company, and therefore close more deals. It can be really hard to reach a decision maker today. It's a very noisy world. People get a lot of cold emails. People don't answer their phones. It's the stakes have gone up than from when I started my career in sales. It's really important to build relationships with the right people, real relationships with people, and that's how you can have real introductions made. We talked a lot about Drew's company, Connect the Dots, which allows you to figure out who you're most connected with and who they are most connected with, who the people on your team are most connected with, and scores those relationships so that you can connect into another organization, network your way in far more easily. You can see the contact's name, emails, where they've worked in the past, etc. So the value of networking and Drew's tool Connect the Dots, the value of Connect the Dots is amplified if you can get everyone's team's network on the platform, and then you can tap into anyone who is on your team's strong relationships. Another piece of advice from Drew is to seek out interesting in-person events, and I guess I'd underline in-person events to
Hmm.
build new relationships and keep providing value and keep things fresh and interesting. Because in-person connection is still super important for building real and long-term, not just transactional relationships. Drew, this has been you've taught our listeners so many valuable things, and your company sounds super cool. Um, where can listeners read more about your work, and how can they reach out to you?
So I just want to say that summary was incredible. And be honest, come on, you used ChatGPT to summarize that, right? You had to.
No.
No, you did that yourself. Surprise!
It's just notes.
Incredible. Humans can still beat the machine. That was a great summary. Yeah,
I don't know if ChatGPT can do that sort of thing. Maybe they I don't know. Who knows? When I played around with it, it hasn't done things like that. But, maybe I am a luddite in some degree, in some senses. I
oh,
distrust their conclusions.
when you have mad summarization skills like that, you don't need ChatGPT. So I just stick with what you got. Um, so yeah, best way to find us is at our website at ctd.ai, like connect the dots, ctd.ai. And you can reach me directly. I'm Drew at ctd.ai. And I'm out there. Uh, if you cold email me, though, it better be good. Uh, but you can find people who know me and get a warm introduction to me. So it's a piece of cake too.
There you go. If only there was a tool to do that, right?
Yeah, yeah. If only.
Well,
Cool.
hey, this has been a great episode of the Outside Sales Talk. And if you work in field sales, you'll love Badger Maps, the number one route planner that helps you sell 20% more, drive 20% less. You can get a free trial at badgermapping.com today. And if you can think of any other sales reps that would benefit from learning the skills that Drew dropped on us today, definitely share the love and forward this on to them. Drew, I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Take care until next time, everybody.